Hello and welcome to the Media Freedom Rapid Response interview series, where we invite industry professionals to discuss the most pressing issues for press freedom in Europe today. My name is Kara Ricker. I am monitoring officer at the European Centre for Press and Media Freedom, and I'm joined by Max Peigné to discuss a very worrying trend that we have been witnessing over the past month, namely the filing of false copyright claims and the subsequent takedown of journalistic work from major platforms like Google. Max, you're a journalist and you've been working for Investigative Europe. Investigative Europe is a European cross-border media outlet focusing on investigative journalism. And you were one of the lead reporters on a series of investigations called Shady Bets. The series focuses on shining a light on the dark side of Europe's online gambling industry. For example, one of the investigations concerned Malta's role in protecting gambling firms from betting claims. And another article took a closer look at the enmeshment of the European football and betting industry. And then you also published an article on a particular company called Soft2Bet, which is the investigation that has triggered a number of attacks, which is why we are here today and having this conversation. So Max, thank you so much for joining us. My first question to you is, what was the investigation about?
Well, thanks for having me. Investigate Europe tries to look at cross-border issues that have a European relevance and that are usually underreported. And that's why we wanted to look into the gambling industry, because it's grown in recent years. The online gambling industry is a health issue. It heavily relies on tax havens and discrete actors, and the EU does not regulate it. The EU has no common legislation on gambling, so it's up to member states to regulate it and police it. And one of the aspects we wanted to look at was illegal online gambling, which in very simple terms is basically when a casino targets a country and players in that country without local licenses, which means that it probably doesn't pay local taxes, it doesn't follow rules on addiction, and it would probably have a license in a tax haven instead, like Curacao. And to sort of map that illegal gambling world in Europe, we looked at blacklists, because some countries like France or Belgium publish those blacklists where they will have a list of URLs that are blacklisted because they act illegally in the country. And that's where we sort of realized that between all European countries there were mentions of the same URLs, the same domains for casinos, and the same shell companies in Curacao repeatedly. So we took a closer look at those shell companies in Curacao and at those URLs that kept repeating themselves and that were linked to those shell companies. And basically we did like a typical open source sort of investigation where we looked at corporate documents, trademark registers, just following the paper trail really of everything we could find, because there were also bankruptcy reports in Curacao about those shell companies because they had been sued by angry players. And just following the paper trail, that led us to Cyprus and Malta, where we were able to essentially link 114 unlicensed blacklisted casinos to that company called Soft2Bet, it's got headquarters in Malta and Cyprus. It also has a handful of licensed brands, which would be the ones that they advertise on their website. But we were absolutely certain that they were also at least connected or entirely behind those 114 casinos as well. I mean, the company denied wrongdoing, but they didn't address any of our specific questions. And I suppose it was very difficult for them to deny that they were linked to those companies, because we could show direct ownership links through corporate documents, but also even if you looked at the archives of the company on their website, you could see that at some point they were even saying that they owned them. They were like, oh, we're launching a new brand. And that was a brand that turned to be blacklisted a few months or years later. So they don't do that anymore. They don't advertise those on their website. But there was no way they could deny that really, and they didn't.
So then you published this really important investigation, and you noticed that you were targeted by what we call bogus copyright claims or false copyright claims. What do these attacks look like?
So we published on the 6th of March 2025, and at that point we were already a bit frustrated at the impunity surrounding the company, because we had talked to many players who had massive claims against those shell companies and those casinos, and they were waiting for their money. But even after we published the truth about the company, they were still going to awards, to conferences, they were launching new brands, they were sponsoring new sports teams, and they had a pretty intense PR campaign with a lot of promotional content being purchased in reputable outlets like Reuters or AP. So we're like, okay, well, they're doing a good job at inundating the internet with positive content. And it was only a couple of weeks after we published that our media partner in Malta, mfrr, told us in our Signal group, hey guys, we've been the target of a bogus copyright complaint. We've received an email from Google, and our article was taken down. And the complaint in that case was based on a Tumblr post. So Tumblr, not a lot of us are probably using that anymore, but it's just like that micro blogging platform. And what happened is that anonymous actors had copied and pasted the article into a Tumblr. They had backdated it. They had even stolen the bylines of the actual journalists from mfrr. So the Tumblr was signed by them falsely. And then mfrr received an email. I mean, some of us received similar emails later on, typical stuff saying the infringing news website has blatantly disregarded copyright law, blah, blah, blah. We asked Google to take it down, and that's what happened. Because Google, as an American company, has to follow the US Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that's the DMCA, which initially was a law designed to protect copyright holders. But now it's been increasingly used to silence journalism. So when our colleagues at mfrr flagged that to us, they filed a counter complaint, but I thought, okay, I'm going to look into that a bit more closely and see if there are any other instances where that's happened. So those complaints are recorded on a platform called Lumen database. And I basically realized in the weeks following that there were dozens of complaints filed against our investigation. So in total, between March and sort of mid-end to May, I found over 50 that directly targeted us, Investigate Europe, or our media partners who had published the story. And there were two types of fake complaints. The first one is the very sort of stupid one, sorry to say, using the Tumblrs, and a sort of more insidious one where in about 40 cases, the anonymous actors would impersonate Investigate Europe. So they would go and tell Google, we, Investigate Europe, published a story about this and that, and our media partners stole it from us, essentially. Or anyone quoting that investigation in their news outlet stole it from us. So they were impersonating us wrongly, and Google believed that as well. So during the aftermath of the investigation, our partners in Malta, our partners in Poland, Greece, Estonia, they all got their article de-indexed. The one in Estonia even had an advert bought by someone to promote Soft2Bet on their website, like in the same sort of few days. So the investigation disappeared and the promotional content appeared instead. I think it's important to highlight that these complaints can remain completely anonymous. So in most cases that affected us, you can't see the names of the people who complained, even if it's on your behalf on the Lumen database. And even when you can see a name, quite often, you can probably assume that it's a fake name. So we asked Soft2Bet, hey guys, was it you? Did you do that sneaky move against us? And they didn't reply, so we don't know. But we can tell that it benefited we can tell that it benefited them, these moves, even if we can't prove for sure who actually pressed the button.
And is there any way now for you to fight back? So is there a way to contest these copyright claims?
Yeah, so you can file a counterclaim, and that's what Google says you should do. They don't really advise anything else, so you have to find a counterclaim, but that's the only thing you can do, really. Google told us that they can't tell us who's impersonating us. They can't tell us who's filing those complaints because that's against the law for privacy reasons, probably. So they say the only way you can find out who's doing that is going to court and then forcing Google to release the information. So initially we asked Google's legal team, hey, we're the real ones, can you tell us who's impersonating us? They didn't even reply. So then we went to the press office and they were like, yep, that happens, file a counterclaim and otherwise go to court. But for a lot of journalists, they don't even realize that it's happening to them, because if you're not registered with Google as the domain owner of your website, chances are you won't even get the email saying that you've been de-indexed. And this gives Google a huge responsibility to deal with these claims, because Google virtually has a monopoly on searches, right, on internet searches. So when something disappears from Google, it pretty much disappears from the internet, so to say.
Thank you, Max. Are there any steps that you're actively taking now to fight back?
I mean, as I said, counterclaims is the way. For us, I think it's we need to keep the investigation alive. We want to keep working on Soft2Bet and other unlicensed providers because that's one actor among others, Soft2Bet. You know, and despite media scrutiny, as I said, they keep growing. Just the other day, Soft2Bet became the sponsor of the top football leagues in Denmark. And when such investigations are silenced and when promotional content is being purchased at the same time, there's no way for other actors to know that those companies are also involved in blacklisted gambling. But I think besides us as journalists, it's really up to Google also to sort of up its game, because they admitted to us when we questioned them that they use a mix of automated checks and human checks to treat complaints. But when you see that they believe a Tumblr over a news outlet, you really wonder how much of a human check there actually is. And to be fair to Google, I think they received 12 billion complaints since 2012, but most of them are actually from legitimate publishers like HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House. So I think they really need to have actual human checks when claims originate from, Tumblr or blog posts, whenever it's a bit suspicious. They need to check the identity of the claimants as well, if they can, because how can someone impersonate a news outlet, I wonder? You either need, a signed letter to say you're representing them, or you need to use an email address from that news outlet. So I think they really should check who's sending them complaints. And perhaps they could whitelist news organizations as well, so that that sort of doesn't happen automatically, that a news organization will get de-indexed just based on a Tumblr posts. So yeah, I think there needs to be a lot more scrutiny on Google and how they use AI to assess those claims in general. But that's for policymakers to tackle, and for Google.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you've already done, a bit today and spoken out about this issue, because I think it's an underreported issue that false copyright claims present a serious threat to journalism. So thanks for joining us today, and good luck for them.
Thank you.